Climate change, melting icebergs, Kyoto Protocol, greenhouse gas emissions. Are these issues best left to environmentalists and scientists? Should you and I and other ordinary folk around the world really worry about these issues? Yes, we should. Because our own behavior determines the fate of our environment. Our actions today have consequences for our children tomorrow and their children after that. Planet Earth is changing. Rain patterns are evolving, glaciers are melting, temperatures are changing, which means there's less water for crops in some parts of the world, while in other parts of the world there is flooding. Ideally, we should be proactive. But most of the time we will be reactive. So we're going to have to find new innovative ways to manage harsh climatic conditions. Can science and technology help us manage climate change in India? I'm Manvi Dhillon and you're watching DuPont Presents The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero. And today we're on a quest for zero carbon emissions. So is it all gloom and doom, or is there a silver lining when it comes to the environment? Who better to kick off the discussion than Dr. R.K. Pachauri, well-known environmentalist and chairman of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Dr. Pachauri, thanks very much for your time today. Let's kick off with your latest insights and status when I say climate change. Where are we today? What are the priority issues?
Well, there's a whole range of issues that I think we as members of human society should be concerned about. Climate change is happening, and we have said very categorically in the fifth assessment report of the IPCC that most of the warming that has taken place since the middle of the last century up to now is the result, we can say this with a confidence of 95% or more, is the result of human actions. That means the concentration of greenhouse gases that's built up in the atmosphere. When industrialization began, we had 280 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's now exceeded 400 parts per million. And this is leading to several impacts. Sea level rise, for instance, since the beginning of the last century, the average sea level rise, because of melting of all the bodies of ice and the thermal expansion of the ocean, has been 19 centimeters. Now that's pretty serious. If you are living in a coastal area, you're living in a small island state, then clearly this amount of increase in the sea level can be threatening to life and property. If you look at temperature increase since the beginning of the last century up to 2010, the average temperature increase has been 0.85 degrees Celsius. So that's almost 1 degree average increase. And let's remember that the temperature difference, average temperature difference between the ice ages and the interglacial periods is just about 4 degrees or so. So if we are going to hit 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, then you're asking for very serious trouble. You could get sea level rise of several meters. And in any case, today, it's not just the increase in temperature. There are extreme events, extreme precipitation events. I mean, like you see in Jammu and Kashmir, and I'm not saying that this is the result of climate change, but what I will say categorically is that events of this nature will become more intense and more frequent in the future. And that's been happening. The trend is very, very clear.
What are the kind of innovations that you would like to see, driven by science and technology, happen on a wider, larger scale in India?
Well, in the transport sector, for instance, unfortunately, you find the share of road transport has been going up, both with respect to freight and passenger traffic. What you need is innovation in terms of bringing about a major improvement in the efficiency and the speed of the railways, because rail traffic and rail transportation is far more energy efficient. It'll burn much less fossil fuels than the same amount being carried on roads.
So transportation is one.
Transportation is one. Buildings are an extremely important target. Well, firstly, you design the building in such a way that you minimize the demand for energy. And then all of it is met from photovoltaic panels, from a biomass gasifier, and something which you find in some of the old buildings as a principle. We have 4 earth air tunnels through which we blow air which goes into the living spaces. And the thing is, if you go 4 meters below the surface of the earth, the temperature is uniform throughout the year with very minor variation. So if you blow air through a well-designed tunnel, and of course this takes a lot of calculation, then you get warm air in the winter and you get cool air in the summer. So it really serves the purpose of air conditioning. So innovation can make an enormous difference in dealing with this problem.
This show is called The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero. Can we realistically talk of a quest for zero carbon emissions in India?
Well, worldwide we'll have to do that, because we have assessed in the 5th assessment report that if we want to limit temperature increase by the end of this century to 2 degrees Celsius, then by the end of this century we will have to go into the range of zero or negative emissions of greenhouse gases. And human society can do it. It is within our means. We have the power, we have the economic muscle, we have
the
ingenuity to be able to do it. So, all we need to do is to treat this as a challenge, and to my mind, this would be an extremely exciting journey.
Brick, cement and mortar is changing the face of India's landscape, one building at a time. But sustainable development is the key challenge in a rapidly urbanizing world. And developing practices that work for a low-carbon future. Shanghai, New York, New Delhi, big cities, impressive buildings, grand architecture. That's the trend, and it's catching on. I'm here in the outskirts of Chandigarh at the Mohali campus of the Indian School of Business. The campus is impressive. We all marvel at these concrete miracles, but how often do we think about how these buildings work? Let me explain. Fact 1, atmospheric temperature affects indoor temperature. Fact 2, the hotter it is outside, the harder and longer you have to work your conventional central air conditioning system. Now here's a lesser known fact. There are some green buildings, buildings with a soul, environmentally conscious buildings, like the Mohali campus of the Indian School of Business. This campus doesn't just teach its students courses in leadership and vision, it's leading the charge on environmentally sustainable buildings. An incubator of ideas.
Sustainability is important because of our survival. I mean, we are breathing air. If it's not fresh, we are the ones who are at fault.
We need AC. We are running AC for 3-4 hours a day minimum. How to make it cheaper? How to make it sustainable?
Environment is the context in which we operate. You pick up any industry whatsoever. So you take up manufacturing, iron ore, energy, anything, everything that we need to create value. We get it from the environment.
The Mohali campus of the Indian School of Business is the place Arun Shenoy looked to for launching a game-changing idea in indoor air cooling.
Traditional air conditioners, as we might all know, are energy guzzlers. In India, most of the energy supplies come from coal. So any building that is using a number of energy guzzling devices in it would have a larger carbon footprint, which means that it would result in significant emissions and would have an adverse effect on the environment.
Working together with engineer Mandar Kaprikar, the geothermal cooling system technology was developed to work with India's climate conditions at the Mohali campus of the Indian School of Business. The geothermal cooling principle is this: cold water from a chiller plant circulates through the building and absorbs the heat. The heated water from the chiller passes through the geothermal heat exchanger. This heat exchanger cools the water as the water flows through the underground pipe system. This cooled water flows back into the building and cools it. What, in a nutshell, is the science behind the geothermal cooling systems that you have come up with?
See, the ground below about 10 meters of depth maintains its temperature at a constant level. Okay? And this temperature in a given region is lower than the ambient temperature outdoor for most parts of the year. Okay? In other words, the cooler ground ambient below the ground, it provides a winter-like environment, right? And our air conditioning systems like winter-like environments because they consume lower energy during winter and higher energy during summer. Now that we have provided them a winter-like environment throughout the year, they will always consume lower energy, and that's the science.
With green technologies that care for our planet, the learning resonates through the campus.
We are the largest user of a geothermal system. We have a 234-ton system working for us. We are upgrading it to going to 300 ton. So one full chiller will go to this. We wouldn't have gone there if it didn't make business sense. It is helping us save roughly 1,000 units of power every day. We save something like 10,000 liters of water every day. We also save a lot of chemicals, both in terms of money and the chemicals, what it does to environment.
The goal is gunning for Shunya, whether it is in aiming for a minimal carbon footprint or developing infrastructure and technologies that respect our environment.
Shunya for us is buildings that are net zero energy, buildings that have a zero carbon footprint, and buildings that can cause zero emission.
Imagine if every single building in India started adopting such innovative technologies, right? Aren't we then really very close to the power of Shunya?
Clearly, modern buildings don't just need concrete, steel, cement, glass, and precise engineering. They need a soul too. Today, you've seen how a small change in mindset can have a huge benefit for the environment.